So let's begin with the story of Yawu Miller. Mr. Miller was recently stopped by the Boston police while covering a protest for his paper, the Bay State Banner, where he is editor. His experience mirrors that of many other people of color in every community and state across our country.
Several officers, about seven of them approached me and stopped me and asked me what I was doing. And when I explained what I was doing, they asked for ID, and then they FIO'd me. They entered me into the FIO database.
So what was your immediate reaction? I mean, I know you went along with their request, but what were you thinking? Was this kind of a day in the park for you? Was this something you were just going to brush off your shoulders, or was it a little bit more serious?
I've been stopped. The first time I was stopped, I was 10 years old on my bicycle. And, throughout my teenage years and 20s and into my 30s, I was stopped regularly. I think the bigger thing that I have is I've always felt from age 10 on that I'm not doing anything wrong. They can't do anything to me. There have been times when I've actually been really afraid. I'm still thinking like I've not done anything wrong. But, I was stopped once by the gang unit in the 1990s, late 1990s. Being stopped by them was terrifying. I was wearing a jacket and tie, and they were asking me, "When's the last time you were arrested?" With young black men, a lot of times, and also with people my age. A lot of times we get really frustrated with the officers. There's a sense of injustice that that you feel a lot of times, that that this kind of treatment isn't happening with white people.
Yawu told us that he was fortunate to carry the shield of being a reporter, those are my words, during that encounter, knowing that he could report whatever happened to him. But Dominique, not everybody out there is a reporter. Not everybody feels comfortable in a situation like that. What does this story tell us really about the state of race and police stops?
Well, first of all, systems of public safety have often served as the most efficient tools for racial oppression. And at the core of it, communities are just safer when they don't have to call the police. And so when you're working with communities and you're hearing the context of the change that they want to make within a global pandemic that is really also at the crux of a racial reckoning, you have many people who really are concerned and passionate and want to advocate for change. But the change also has to be very clear that you have to understand the systems and the historical context to these systems in order to have an equitable approach and plan for putting forth the change that you wish to see.
And that equitable approach, I guess, Sophia, as we look at, young men of color out in communities across the country and certainly here in Boston, is it kind of a broken record that when they are out, even if they're not doing anything, even if police aren't calling or being called into a situation, that they could just randomly fall into trouble in a situation like that, where they're just standing around, not doing anything wrong?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I know as a civil rights lawyer is that our laws reflect our societal values and our norms. And here in Massachusetts, we've had several cases in the last few years that have been decided by our Supreme Judicial Court, our highest court, that have recognized that the intersections of race and identity, whether that's race and age, are not indicative of criminality, but society has taught us that they are. The response and the experience that many people have had with law enforcement have taught them that they are. A black man fleeing down the street is not indicative of criminality. It's indicative of a system that's broken, that's sort of ingrained with commonplace racial profiling. And we as a community are responding to that, and our laws very, very slowly are starting to reflect those lived experiences of so many people in our community who have been disenfranchised and dealt with law enforcement in a really tumultuous way for a very long time.
And Milton, this is your beat, and I'm wondering, a police officer out on patrol or just sitting, waiting for a call, are they not unaware of what this friction is like and what is going on out in the community when they approach a person of color in a situation like this?
I think there's a recognizing a deeper recognizing that we're seeing now with the Supreme Judicial Court decisions that Sophia has mentioned. Police officers don't understand because they have this in law and order kind of mentality of they're out to do the public good. So they may not recognize it, or they haven't seen it. It's not on their watch, I guess, or it hasn't
Right.
happened on their watch.
But it's in the news all the time, right?
And we
I mean,
see it all the
the
time, and we're
stories,
seeing it
exactly.
more, and people like Yawu are sharing those stories. And I think we're starting to see the recognition of it actually happening through cell phone videos. And so I think police officers want to think of they're in the law and order, they're doing the public good, but I think they're slow to recognize that there are deep concerns that are real concerns.
Right. And do you think there's this recognition that a simple, question to ask someone for, their ID or something like that could escalate into more than just a typical police stop?
I think they do say that, and they talk as much as we're talking about police reform. They want to say, we're reinventing our training, and we're improving our training and reforming our training. We do recognize it. I don't think there's a recognition of the extent of it, though, and that it's real. It is real. It's being recognized in Supreme Court decisions. It's being recognized in reform that we're talking about. But those calls need to be louder, and I think they need to be received a bit more.
Right. And we're going to talk a little bit later in the program about